Hi, this is VGGuy95 doing part 2 of my thoughts of the 2012-2013 winter lineup, and just basically what I recommend and whatnot. So this time around, just because I noticed from my previous video that I'm still not using the script. I did write up a bunch of notes just for me to remember what should I say for the most part. So anyway, let's begin. So now we're on the anime Kanojo to Osananajimi ga Shuraba Sugiru. Again, if I mess up any of these names, which it's bound to happen. Also shortened to OreShura. Yeah, that's a lot better. So basic synopsis is that Eita, which is a high schooler, is aiming for a national university school of medicine in order to become a doctor. Because of his parents' divorce and his goal, which involves a lot of studying, he shuns anything that has anything to do with romance or love. Then one day, Masazu, the school beauty with the silver hair, who just returned to the country, enters his life in the most unexpected way. That is bribery. Yay! No, not bribery. It's, what was it? Blackmailing. There we go. Yeah. Okay, and then basically, Chiwa, which is his childhood friend, and then a bunch of other people will get involved, and basically they start making a club and whatnot. Basically, slice of life shenanigans. Now, best way to describe this show would be, so because there's later on, well, not later on, very early in the show, you can start to tell that this is very similar to two previous shows that I talked about from a different video. Chunbyo, because the main character has a journal that his quote-unquote girlfriend uses as blackmail for him. And now you just add that with a harem, and then maybe the artwork of, again, another anime that I talked about, Sakurasou. And you get this thing. Now, okay, just to tell you, first of all, that I'm not really that big of a fan of the harem genre, because most of the time, all the characters fall under a specific stereotype. There's not really that many interesting characters in that stance, and also, obviously, because all of them love it, just this one character who's oblivious, like this scenario. It kind of just goes under the same exact shenanigans as other harem animes go. But if you like that sort of thing, that's completely fine. It's your opinion. So I'm going to be basically judging this show as as a harem anime. So, with the characters, most of them follow most of the harem tropes that you kind of expected. I being the tsundere-ish character that is also a childhood friend character. Chiwa also being the other childhood friend character who, this is my opinion, but this wouldn't really affect it too much, is that I didn't really find her really that interesting, and I've actually kind of found her kind of annoying. Himeka, which is the other Chunbyo type character, which I kind of liked, but it's more because I like shy girls and whatnot, so that doesn't really affect much. But the only character, in my opinion, that I found very interesting, though, in this show, though, is Masazu. Mostly because she doesn't really follow kind of a trope. She follows the usual beauty character that also has a different side of life. But the fake girlfriend idea through blackmail was actually a very original idea, which I thought was pretty good. Now, the comedy overall, I thought was pretty okay, but again, it just follows under the usual harem tropes that you usually expect, the swimsuit contest, stuff about, marriage proposals, that sort of thing. And then, one other thing that I didn't really like about the show was the opening ending. Usually I don't really pay attention to this sort of thing, you usually get your usual J-pop stuff, but the opening and ending, just for me, kind of just really bugged me. But overall, I think this show, it's good if you like the harem genre type fiasco. Other than that, maybe you can give it a shot, but don't really expect too much of the show. Okay. So, next show I'm going to be talking about is Robotic Notes. Again, it's a show that I talked about last season. Just give me a moment. Just give me drinking something. Okay, yeah. Iced tea, good shit. Now, anyway. Basic synopsis, if you didn't watch my previous video. The year in Robotic Notes to take place is 2019. And it's supposed to take place in the same world as their big hit anime, and visual novel Steins Gate, which, if you want to know, Robotic Notes is also a visual novel. That's besides the point. So, in this future, basically, robotics is advanced up to a point where basically giant robots and like android type robotics has been evolved up to the point that's actually possible. Well, up to a more practical level. And then basically the central Tanegashima High School, again, I'm probably butchering something, Robot Research Club is basically trying to build a giant robot. And then basically the entire show is just about basically this group of club members, which will be expanding because originally there's only 2 members, and then it ends up with, I believe, let's see here, 5. And basically they're going to be building a giant robot based off the anime within the anime, Gun Barrel, which is like a clone of, let's say, Gundam, I would probably say. And now, just to start off, just completely saying, says because this is based on their So because this is based on the visual novel made by Nitro Plus, there's easily going to be things that are going to be compared between this, Chaos Head, and Steins Gate. So because they all have the, I like to call the semicolon series. Now, just to be clear, Robotic Notes is not like any of the other 2. And just to be blunt right now, it is much better than Chaos Head, by far. But it's definitely not as good as Steins Gate. But Steins Gate was a masterpiece, so you can't really judge something based on that. Okay, now, one of the main problems that a lot of people have with the show, which I admit is definitely kind of a problem, especially during the beginning of the show, but is that it does start off really slow. Like, while the characters are still interesting, even in the beginning, not really much happens, at least until, maybe around episode 7 or 8, basically, where, things starts getting involved with the main character. I'm terrible with names. I'm okay with faces, but okay. Kaito, where basically he starts investigating this conspiracy with this guy named Ko. I'm pretty sure. Yes, Kimijima Ko, and how he has this idea. Well, this is conspiracy of how basically it's some sort of a involving solar flares, and I'm not trying to spoil much, so basically that's the sort of idea, and basically he uses this tablet, this futuristic tablet called what they call the Pokecom, which has nothing to do with Pokemon, by the way, in order basically to solve the mystery, while also trying to help his friend Akiho trying to build the giant robot. And the thing that really makes this anime work for me was that I really enjoyed the characters. For one thing, Akiho, which is the main heroine, I'm pretty sure basically everyone likes her personality pretty much. It's the bright, cheerful type girl that is willing to go to further lengths in order to achieve her goals. But then she also has the comedic her comedic quirks that really work for the character. Another character that I really enjoyed was Kona Furuguru, which is the neat character. Well, more like Hikikomori, if you need to know what that is, look up on Wikipedia. But basically, she mostly makes jokes involving gouge and also with internet slang, which I find really funny. So overall, I think this show, give it a try. It's definitely not for everyone, but I really enjoy it. It's definitely, like I said before, it's definitely not as good as Steins Gate, but you can't compare anything to Steins Gate. Steins Gate is one of the best shows animes ever made up to this point, so you can't really compare it. Now, next off on the list is Sakurasou no Pet na Kanojo. Now, this is also one of those shows that I talked about a lot during the previous season with pretty good results. And I gotta say, for this season, it's definitely the best anime of the season. Now, for one... okay, I should probably actually begin with the synopsis. Okay. If you didn't watch the previous video and whatnot. Okay, so this is a school romantic comedy revolving around a second-year high school student named Sorata, who lives in Sakurasou, the dormitory for problem children at Sorata's art school. And then one day, a girl named Mashiro Shina, who happens to be a cosmopolitan, brilliant artist, moves on into Sakurasou. While Sorata thinks of himself that he should protect Mashiro from the weirdos at Sakurasou, but Mashiro has a surprising secret. She has no idea how to take care of herself. She gets lost if she goes out, and her room's a complete mess. Sorata's dorm mates designate her as the master, quote-unquote, Mashiro, not to be sexual in any sort of way, don't worry. An ordinary boy and a brilliant girl must live like a master and his pet. Again, like I said, nothing sexual about this whatsoever. Now, basically the reason why this show is highly praised so far as being probably the best show of this season is mostly due to all the characters, all of them, are likable. Like Sorata, while he does follow the tropes of the the romantic comedy male character, he deviates off to the point where he's very realistic how he approaches things. Plus, also one thing that I'm pretty sure most people like about the show is that with the main character is that he's trying to design video games, and most people that like watching anime like video games. So anyway, now Mashiro is very funny when watching, but probably my favorite of the lead heroines is Nanami Oyama, because again it follows like the realistic trope where because one of the common themes of the show, without trying to spoil much, is that sometimes doing your hard work isn't just enough. Which, even though that is a cruel theme, it is realistic up to the point, and you just need to keep on trying and trying and trying until eventually something may happen. And hard work itself may not just pay off, which I really seem to enjoy. Because it's very different from any other anime that I've watched recently. A couple other things that I liked about this show. The art design, because obviously since it's based on an art school, is really it's beautiful. And the animation, even though there are a couple of times where you see a car which is full of computer generated graphics, where it kind of looks kind of bad, but for the most part, all the characters, especially Misaki, which is supposed to be the crazy girl with large breasts and is very energetic, shows basically what the animation technology can pull off. Now, again, trying to not spoil anything, but I will say though that the ending of this show is really good. It's very simple, but it's very good. That's all I'm going to say about it. And then also, lastly, the comedy of the show is really funny. But then it also goes between being really funny and then also going to the drama aspects, which is really strong. So what I say with the show, definitely watch it. It's a 24 episode series. So it's a good enough length in order to give characters development, and the show is just overall just a really good show to watch just to have a good time. Now, next show is Sasami-san Ganbaranai. And this is supposed to be Shaft's next work. If you know from, if you know me, I'm a big fan of Shaft for the most part. I mean, in my opinion, Shaft is the best animation company, not because of like the actual animation, because to be honest, it's not up to par with things like Kyoto Animation or Bones at the moment, but because they always try to work their way through with this problem by adding, like, be very creative with their animation, like putting in paper cutouts and whatnot. Like, three really great examples, which I highly recommend watching, is Sayonara Zetsubo Sensei, Bakemonogatari, and my favorite anime of all time currently is Planet Magi and Madoka Magica, which I've stated in a previous video. But anyway, back to Sasami-san. So, this anime, now I'm going to give you the synopsis that they give you on my anime list, but it's not in my opinion, it's not a very good synopsis, so I'm probably going to explain a little bit more what the story is about. Okay, so the Japanese call them hikikomori, people who have been withdrawn socially, that they refuse to leave their homes for weeks and even months at a time. For Sasami, who's attempting to pass her first year of high school despite being a shut-in, it's more than just a word. Fortunately, though, she lives with her older brother, Kamiyomi, who just happens to be a teacher at the school Sasami is supposed to attend, and he happens to be really into incest. Not to mention her brother's surveillance dude, quote unquote, which lets her view the outside world via her computer and theoretically her to readjust interfacing with people again. What it merely does, however, is to let her view her brother's interactions with the three very odd Yagami sisters who inexplicably have their ages reversed and various types of quote-unquote interest in Kamiyomi. And then things start to get weird. Magical powers, everything turned to chocolate. It's life via the web warping Sasami's brain is the universe that's going crazy. Now that sounds confusing because that synopsis really is. So basically, in order to explain the actual plot of this show is kind of complex, but it's just basically about Sasami-san, who very quickly on they tell you basically how she is supposed to be a shrine maiden, but basically escaped the lifestyle because her mother passed away. And then it's basically about these weird occurrences that are happening within the city. And this show involves a lot of like Japanese mythology and about deities and whatnot. Now one thing with this show is that, like, similarly to the previous shows that I stated before involving Shaft, is that it does do the thing where it uses the escapist animation, where they use the very interesting art styles in order to fill up the problems with the animation. But this anime, however, is not as interesting as the other ones that they were famous of. Because, for one, while it gets very interesting during the first couple of episodes, there's this one hollow gap, which without trying to spoil anything, it's basically when they're discussing about the Sasami's mother. There's a dead zone of the show being very uninteresting for the most part, because it's just backstory of just this one character that, to be honest, I didn't really give two shits about. And then, in order to fill up this hole, they should have made it so that the artwork would have been a lot more interesting. So basically, we got this. We got the beginning, which is interesting enough. Like it stated in the synopsis, that it involves chocolate and how it's gonna kill us all, basically. And then as you get introduced to the three sisters, one of them, which is the oldest, which looks like the lolly, is one of the deities. Then there's the middle one, which is like a military android, And then there's the tall one, which is the youngest one, who basically consumes like anything, can consume anything. And that really works with the weirdness of that the show's supposed to be. Then the middle, which is really slow, it's basically, like I said, the dead zone of the show, which kind of almost made me want to lose interest in the show. But then basically hitting episode 10, which is like nearly the end of the show, and then kicks right back up, and it made it actually very enjoyable to watch again. So one thing that's very good with this show, at least with the later and the very beginning episodes, is that the comedy used in the show is very creative. Like, I haven't really watched a show that isn't an ecchi show that makes a joke about futanaris, which is kind of interesting. That's all I'm gonna say. And then there's countless of references that in the show that, if you can figure out what they are talking about, are really funny. Like the biggest example I can come up with was in episode 1. There was one reference to the melancholy Haruhi Suzumiya, which that was actually very good. And then also, like, one running gag, which it was kind of funny at first, but then it started, in my opinion, started becoming a problem, was the Sasami's brother, Kamiyomi, has no face. Or at least he might have a face, but you never see it. Which kind of it's funny at first, but then it kind of like pulls you away from that character, because he's almost like he's not really there, other than just being this incestuous guy that just happens to be in Sasami's house all the time. But okay, overall, I say Sasami-san, you can give it a try, but if you don't like it, but I will tell you that there is basically this dead zone that you may want to skip at that point. So yeah. Now, next show is supposed to be the Kyoto Animation Moe anime of this season, is Tamako Market. Now, about Kyoto Animation, that animation house is probably my second favorite of the animation houses, because if you ever watched the Melancholy Haruhi Suzumiya, for the most part, except for season 2, Lucky Star, Chunbyo, I really enjoyed. Let's see here, what else? Full Metal Panic, a very underrated show. Very good. It's very good though. What else is it? Give me a moment. I'm actually curious. I want to look at Kyoto Animation. How can I forget Clannad? Okay, so Clannad, and then there's Canon, which is also a really great show. If you really like the Jun Maeda's Crying Game. And they also made Inuyasha, which I never really got into, but it's there. Nichijou. That was a fun show to watch. So anyway, I basically wanted to watch this just because basically Kyoto Animation animated, and they have a large budget usually with all the shows, even though all they do is basically slice of life animes. So, but the thing though about the show is that you need to like K-On! In order to like this show. And what I mean by that is that it's basically K-On!, which is basically follows like the cutesy type stuff that goes along with this kind of show. And it's not really much. It's comedy, but it's not like it's very lighthearted comedy. It's not like hilarious type comedy. And it mostly just the only way to really like the show is that if you're really like looking at cute things like K-On!, which to me, no offense to people that like K-On!, but I didn't like it that much. Because just cuteness doesn't make me want to watch a series. So, the synopsis even though there's a giant ass paragraph in my anime list, I'm just gonna sum it up basically in 3 sentences. So basically, Tamako is the daughter of a shopkeeper in the what was it called? The Tamako Market. The Tamako Market. And basically, she finds a bird named Dara, and then basically Dara is trying to find a bride for his prince in a a made up country, like it usually is, usually an island. So in this case it's an island, and then basically it's just about Tamako's random antics in the market with her school friends, as well with Dara being the fat bird. So, but basically what I stated before is just basically what I can really say at the show. I mean, all the characters are just, they're cute and whatnot. It's funny, but it's not like hilarious funny. And you gotta really like K-On! In order to really enjoy the show, which, so the thing is, I didn't really like K-On! That much. It was okay for me. So all in all, with Tamako Market, only watch it if you like K-On! Basically. If you like K-On!, you're gonna like the show, and that's that. Okay, so now this is supposed to be, I thought, sorry, tea break. Okay, so Vividred Operation. Now this is gonna be an interesting one for me, only because this basically made me realize one thing is that depending on the medium of what the animes are based on, whether it's the main 3 that are usually it's based on is the light novel, the manga, or nothing at all. That's usually what the main 3 mediums for anime come from. And what I always notice with these kind of shows is that with the light novel, they generally are the most consistent with the animes that come out of it, where usually they're pretty good for the most part, mostly because with light novels they're written out beforehand with just text, no pictures. So therefore every single detail can just be creatively done in its own way and it'll still look good. With manga, it's kind of more of a broader scale where it can end up really good. Like, let me just give you an example. Gintama. Or, let's see here, what else? Yeah, Full Metal Alchemist, that's also a pretty good one. And with light novels, a couple of really good ones are Ori no Moto, Sakurasou, that's a good one that I just listed, in this video. But then, with mangas, there are also, the occasional not so great ones that, you always find every once in a while, but it's kind of expected. Now, with shows like Vividred Operation, there's either going to be 2 results that I always find. It's either the show is going to be amazing, like, a couple of really good examples are Playa Magica Madoka Magica, my favorite show, Angel Beats, and Gurren Lagann, and Code Geass. Now, the other result is that the show is terrible. Like, if you look up basically the worst anime ever, which this, if you probably search up worst, if you go look around in my anime list and find the lowest rated show, it's not based off I believe it's not based off anything. So that's kind of what I mean by it's very risky in order to do a show that is not based off anything, because it's all about whether or not the writing is good. And I had originally pretty decent hopes for this show. Now, the one thing clear is that this is a magical girl show, and I've only watched one magical girl show seriously, which is, as I stated before, Playa Magica Madoka Magica. And, like, as a child, I believe I watched a few episodes of Sailor Moon, but I never got into it just because during the time, obviously, I thought Sailor Moon was girly. But I'm over that phase, so I'll give anything really a try. Hold on, I just wanted to take another tea break. My throat's dry. Okay. So, let me just give you the basic synopsis right now. So, friendship is the key to protecting the world. That is everyone's wish, here in a world where scientists solved all questions. This story is set in Oshima. The happy, carefree 14-year-old Akane Ishiki lived a poor but well-loved life together with her reliable sister Momo, who does all housework. So basically, usual main character being ditzy and kind of useless. And her grandfather Kenjiro, which is a genius inventor who only created useless devices. Great stuff, Created useless devices, the giant plant which can destroy the entire world, but it gives off unlimited supplies of energy. Good stuff. Completely useless. Anyway, so when the weather's clear, they can see an artificial island, Blue Island, across the sea. In the center of the island rises revolutionary manifestation engine, a discovery that has solved the world's energy problems, or the world's energy destruction. It is a peaceful future just like everyone dreamed of, one where everyone can smile and happy. Except for North Korea. But suddenly the world is visited by danger. An unknown enemy, the Alone, appear, targeting the manifestation engine, but for no reason. As none of their weapons worked, and they fell into despair, a lone girl takes the stand wearing a red pallet suit which wields a great hidden power. Before long, allies gather around her to fight, and the friendship becomes the only hope for saving the world. So yeah, basically the plot sounds like basically your basic magical girl show. Now, I'll just state the good, and then I'll state the bad later, which there's a lot, to be honest. Okay, so what's the good? Okay, so the opening and ending are really good. Simply put, if you look it up, you'll understand what I mean. Like, very high quality animation overall with this entire show. And one thing I thought was really interesting with the show was that usually with these magical girl shows, they're trying to hide their identities. Well, with this show, they actually work with the military, which I thought was actually pretty cool. So basically, you see all these magical girls also fight along with the with tanks and jets and aircraft carriers and whatnot, which I thought was actually pretty awesome. And the show definitely does have the high budget that they required in order to make a show really good. Now, I'll just start with minor bad things aside with the show, and then go towards more of the bigger problems of the show. Now, one of the smaller problems, which kind of becomes a larger problem later on, is that the show kind of feels very episodic, where there's not really much plot that it connects to one another, other than basically there's a giant monster. We must fight it. And either they recruit another person, or you do a combination with this thing called the Vivid docking system, where basically two of the magic girls fuse together into one sexier chick that's a whole lot more powerful than the two separated. And the show reminds me a lot of Power Rangers, where basically it's very episodic and a lot of cheesy stuff happens, and there's just the one villain a day where it gets defeated by the end of the episode. Now, I would be completely fine with that if this was supposed to be like a children's show, but the problem here is that I always had a question with this entire show, was that who is supposed to be the audience for the show? Now, I thought this is because it's going to be an episodic, and I had a lot of time to really think about this, and I still don't have a clue. So, in the comment section, you give your opinion on this matter. But so I thought that was going to be more like a show for the younger audience, because it's episodic. It's not really that much plot involved. It's about a bunch of carefree girls just doing the usual middle school, because they're all supposed to be in middle school. like basic activities, and then they just fight a giant monster and then go back to their lives. But there's this one thing that bothered me straight from episode 1, and it's the amount of ass shots in this show. So it's trying to be also like ecchi-ish, which is kind of really odd because they're supposed to be like 10 to 12-year-old girls. So it felt really awkward to watch. So then I thought maybe this was supposed to attract to the adult audience because it kind of goes with the sexy route for like ecchi animes go. But then again, you go back and then you think about the plot points and like how that's not really fits with that. So then you start thinking that maybe it's supposed to fit in the middle of the 13 and older crowd. But again, most 13-year-olds that I know, which well, either if you're a guy or a girl, wouldn't be watching this at this point, because when I was 13, I was more interested in like the big three with the with animes. And then I'm pretty sure with girls, they were probably more into like things like Fruit Basket or Spice and Wolf, where they're more focused on like romance themes and whatnot. And then the biggest problem with this show that I found was how the characters, with the exception of one, which is Ray, which is like the pseudo character that is bad, but not all bad. She has a reason for it. But the main four characters that are supposed to be the magical girls or the Vivids have really no character development whatsoever. Like, they're always just there like this one static like character that never really develops in any sort of way. With they accept like, also when I think about it, the yellow one, Himawari, kind of develops a little bit, but it's not enough really to affect like her personality or what her morals are or anything like that. Because the show never really goes up to that sort of thing. It always just falls around just friendship and love and that sort of stuff. So it's not deep enough in order for me to for the audience to really connect to. And then also another problem is that the actual villain of the show, which the show pretty early on, it's just a bird, and when I thought for like the first like 11 out of the 12 episodes, like what was the whole point of the Alones actually showing up? And when they finally give the reason, it's probably one of the dumbest things and like basically the most generic one-dimensional villain trope I've ever seen in a while, which really discouraged me from this show. But eventually I did watch the entire thing, and I thought, my God, this show is probably, in my opinion, the worst show I've seen in a while, because even though the animation's great, even though the opening is great, and the plot doesn't work, the target audience is questionable. There's no character development, almost no character development whatsoever in this entire show. The villain is super one-dimensional. And so basically it means that the only thing you're watching is just basically the action. And that just reminds me of like those Michael Bay movies where there's no characters really whatsoever, and it's just the action. And those movies, even though we watched them before, they all suck. So, when you really think about it. So, overall, I say try to avoid this show. I know that the show has a 6.8, which is still low in standards, but in my opinion, it should be a lot lower. But when you really think about it, the show, just avoid it. So, that's my view on all the shows that I've watched in winter 2012 and 2013. Overall, I think this lineup wasn't really that great, but what I am grateful is that next lineup, spring 2013, has a lot of really good ones that I'm really interested in, like new season of Ori no Imoto, another season of Railgun, and And then there's a couple other new series that really piqued my interest because they don't focus the slice of life thing that we've been going through now. And I like slice of life, but you need to take a break from it every once in a while. So that's gonna be a fun time. So when that lineup is done, I'll make another video for that. So this is VG95 signing out.